Self-doubt is a luxury that you can't afford. And I know that sounds a bit intense, it sounds a bit hyperbolic, it sounds a bit harsh. And I do kind of mean it that way, to be honest, because this is something that I've had to tell myself a lot lately, specifically, but in general, it's a mindset shift that has really helped me work through a lot of my self-doubt. And it's when I started telling myself that you can't afford the self-doubt you're allowing yourself to lean into right now. You can't afford it because I think we forget that our work or our efforts or our lives have impact in this world. And so the reason I framed it like this for myself, right, that you can't afford the self-doubt you have, is because there are many professions that have a very pivotal and obvious impact where they know that there are consequences to them doubting themselves. This is a topic I talked about also on Substack. I wrote a whole personal essay about this. And also I recorded a TikTok video. But I think it's important to talk about these ideas and things in different ways, different mediums, different platforms. So I want to explore it in my podcast as well. But there are many professions where truly, if they doubt themselves doing it, it can have enormous repercussions and affect many people. So the example I like actually to use for myself, and I think about often, is when we think about surgeons, they have a job that affects people directly, right? It's obvious that what they do and how they do it has an impact on people. It's not a subtle impact. And so they can't afford to doubt themselves going into their surgeries. Now, that's not to say that they don't doubt themselves or they don't experience self-doubt. I'm sure they do. I'm sure that's a huge part of the process of becoming a surgeon in many cases, right? And I think we all do. And there's nothing wrong with having self-doubt. It is a human experience, of course, because we do have to confront the fact that we are fallible, imperfect humans, and that leads to self-doubt. So of course, yes, naturally. But when we lean into it, that's the issue, right? When we allow it to take us over, when we allow it to affect the way we show up, I think that's where the problem lies. And it's not beneficial for anybody, right? And that's the key there. So if a surgeon allowed themselves to be taken over by their self-doubt before a surgery, the implications of that, the impact, the repercussions of it are enormous. And they have dire effects, right? Like they will literally have someone's life in their hands. So they can't afford to doubt themselves in that moment. They have to go into it confidently. I mean, they could doubt themselves, but I don't think it would be beneficial for them. It won't be beneficial for their patient. So what's the point? And obviously that's a very extreme example, but I'm using it just to put this idea into perspective. You might have, a job, or your life might be not as intense or dramatic or impactful in those very obvious ways. But maybe you have more subtle impact. I think we all have subtle impact that we don't recognize. I think just existing impacts others. We are all interconnected beings, right? So what we have like the butterfly effect, the domino effect. One thing you do can affect somebody else later on down the line. So, don't disregard that about yourself, because it does have, your existence does have impact, whether you see it or not. So it's important to recognize that when you doubt yourself, you are impacting others and yourself later on down the line. It does have repercussions. You might not notice it right now, and you might not think that you are worthy of having that level of repercussion, right? To the extent that a surgeon might. But you are. And it's important to see both sides of the coin here, both sides of yourself. On the one hand, yes, you are a fallible, messy, small human being, right? A mere human mortal. And on the other hand, you do have more power than you think you do. You do have more impact than you think you do. I think the challenge for many of us, especially when we are going through a personal growth journey, is to find that nice middle ground, to recognize our importance and our impact without, falling into this kind of maybe narcissistic, maybe more godlike imagery of ourselves, because that doesn't lead to anything good either. I think finding that middle ground is where the healthy balance is for us, because doubting ourselves too much isn't healthy. It doesn't benefit us. It doesn't benefit the people around us, but also overestimating ourselves also doesn't benefit us, also doesn't benefit people around us. So that middle ground is what we're aiming for. And the reason I've been thinking about this a lot is because I've mentioned before, I'm writing a book. And as a writer, as someone who really holds writing to a high pedestal, writing a book has been very, very interesting to experience, right? Sitting down, putting my intention, my drive, my focus into a project like this has really brought up a lot of self-doubt. self-doubt exists in my life in general, but in this scenario specifically. And I've had to really retell myself over and over again that I cannot afford to doubt myself. Because realistically, when you doubt yourself, especially when it comes to any sort of endeavor, project, whatever it might be, it could be anything in your life, having a child, raising a child, anything. When you doubt yourself in ways that are maybe too skewed to one side, right? Too doubtful, too uncertain, too scared, too nervous, you are affecting your existence, right? You're affecting the way you maybe make money. You're affecting the way you are a parent to somebody. You're affecting the way you show up for others. You're affecting the way that you show up for yourself, right? Maybe it's a fitness journey. So if you doubt your ability to do that, maybe you never reach your potential, you never take care of your health, whatever it might be for you, right? You can implant any goal, any achievement into this. You can't afford that. You can't afford it. And it doesn't just have to be about money. When I say afford, it can be anything that has that impact or implication for you. If we use the health journey again as an example, you can't afford to not take care of yourself in those ways. Of course, you can't do everything. We all have limitations, and some people can't physically do certain things that others can, of course. But find what works for you. Find what allows you to at least try to attempt it, to believe in some way that, okay, I can at least be consistent with this practice and it feels good and I know it's good for me. To doubt it just because you have limitations in some ways there's no point to it. It does not benefit you. It holds you back. It sabotages you in your life from experiencing the kind of life you want to live. What's the point of that? How does it benefit you? It doesn't. It actually takes away from you. You can't afford it. And ultimately, we have one life to live. We have a finite life. We have a finite amount of time on this planet. How does it benefit you to doubt yourself throughout this process? How does it give you any sort of ultimate beneficial experience for you to doubt yourself? It doesn't. It detracts from the experience. It takes away from your energy. It takes away from your time to doubt yourself, right? Because so many of us get trapped in the cycle of self-doubt, rumination, overthinking, procrastination, all those things that prevent us from moving forward. So we get stuck. We feel stagnant. We feel like we're wasting time. And in some cases we are. And this isn't to make anyone feel like they have to rush or do everything right now, or, our lives have their own pace and some things just have to happen as they happen. You can't force them to. So of course, be mindful of that. But sometimes, you're standing in your own way. Sometimes you're preventing your own experience from happening as it needs to happen because of this self-doubt. And you can't afford that. You don't have an infinite amount of time to give to self-doubt. There's no reason for it. So it's really important to be mindful of this. It's really important to reframe self-doubt for you. And I know sometimes it can feel like self-doubt is a good thing, right? Maybe it's familiar, maybe it's comfortable, maybe you've been conditioned to believe certain things about thinking too highly of yourself that now prevent you from doing that, right? Maybe you were told that thinking too highly of yourself or thinking that you could achieve certain things was narcissistic. Maybe you think that self-doubt is more humble. Maybe you've been taught to think that. And when you doubt yourself, you allow others to succeed and you think that other people are more worthy of it. That, again, that is a false narrative that is only used to hold you down. And that doesn't help anyone either, because you could be preventing yourself from creating something, from doing something that could really elevate a lot of people. So why do that? If you're really looking out for other people, right? If you're really trying to please other people, if you're a people pleaser and your idea is, okay, I'm going to hold myself back because who am I? I'm not good enough. Other people deserve it more. If you think about that, being an ultimate people pleaser means doing what you think is best for others. But what if you're preventing yourself from doing something that can really help other people? Maybe it's writing a book, as an example, that can change lives. Whatever it might be for you. Self-doubt does not benefit you. It does not benefit anybody else. There is no benefit to it. It might benefit somebody who doesn't want to see you succeed. It might benefit the narratives that certain people have about themselves, right? They think that being humble, being modest is the only way to live and be a good person. They tie being a good person to being somebody who doubts themselves, who doesn't think too highly of themselves, who doesn't strive for too much. Those two things don't have to be the same. They don't have to be defined in the same way if you don't want them to be. All of these definitions are in your control, they're in your hand, and you get to decide what they are for you. So for me, I've had to really think of self-doubt as something that detracts from my life. It does not benefit me. I can't afford it. Unfortunately, I have a budget of time, energy, experiences, and I can't afford self-doubt. It's a luxury. It is a luxury because to have a life where you can truly indulge your self-doubt means you have no impact, and you do have impact, right? It's a luxury to think that you don't. It's a luxury to be blissfully ignorant about the impact you have in life. We all have impact. So you are more impactful than you think you are. You are more important than you think you are. You are better than you think you are. Take a hold of that. Really, really use that to benefit yourself and others, right? Not just yourself. That's not good either. But the things that you feel called to and aligned with, lean into them, even if you experience self-doubt, because the self-doubt is not something that you can afford, especially when it's a calling you have had your entire life, whatever that might be for you. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to the people who are going to benefit from you leaning into that, because maybe it will be beneficial for them. Or maybe it'll be beneficial for you and you'll be a better person and you'll be able to help other people in other ways. Who knows? Don't prevent yourself from even seeing that. So I hope this was helpful. I hope it was informative. I hope it gave you a different perspective on self-doubt. How self-doubt, while it feels, uncomfortable, kind of, it creates this feeling like you are the victim. It's actually a luxury. It's very luxurious to be able to indulge in our self-doubt. Not a lot of people have that ability to, right? If we think of, again, the idea of surgeons, that's a luxury they can't afford because they know that if they indulge their self-doubt, other people will be directly affected. We just don't realize the direct impact our lives have, but they have impact. So I think it's important for all of us to recognize that and to understand that your self-doubt, there's no point to it. There's no purpose to indulging in it. It doesn't make you a better person. It doesn't make you kinder. It prevents you from being a person that helps others or helps yourself in many ways, that benefits you in many ways and benefits others. So again, I hope this was helpful. I hope this was an interesting reframing for you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. If you want to read more, again, I have a whole essay on this on my Substack. Follow my TikTok, my Instagram for my other video content. And if you want to work with me one-to-one, I'm not a therapist. I just love talking about these things. But if you want to pick my brain, get my insights or my advice on certain things, feel free to book a one-to-one call over on my website. Other than that, thank you for listening, and I'll be back again soon with another episode.